Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Cimmerian September, Michael K. Vaughan's great BookTube event where we talk about all things Conan, all things Robert E. Howard, or not. I am breaking with the stricture of the event by reading Conan pastiche fiction, and not just any Conan pastiche fiction, but a pile of 40-year-old comic books. I got a stack of old Savage Sword of Conan issues made by Marvel Comics in the 1980s. This was the secret mission, the secret purchase that I got at the Brattle weeks ago. I'm going through them one by one to just talk about all things Conan as they are reflected in these issues. See whether or not the pastiche fiction in these issues captures the spirit of Conan, and in what way. Or maybe elaborates on that spirit, as, for instance, the foremost interpreter of Conan in comic books, Roy Thomas, was often wont to do. And we are up to Savage Sword of Conan number 109, and once again we have a bad cover. It's static, it's incomprehensible, it's not visually appealing. It is by Steve Hickman. I don't know that at all, but it's all of those things. Also, it has nothing to do with the issue. So let's see if the frontispiece actually is the same. We've noticed a pattern where the frontispiece is a better cover than the one that they're actually using. Oh, there is no frontispiece. There is no frontispiece this time around. Well, that won't do, will it? No, there's no frontispiece at all. So we don't have an alternative to this. But the story from the 1980s, when all the world made sense, is called Shatterer of Worlds. And it, like the previous story that we saw with the Snow Raven, harks back to an earlier issue of Savage Sword that we haven't seen. An issue that predates issue number 100, so we didn't see it. But I do remember it. It had a very memorable villain. We meet right away. You remember in the last issue that we saw, in addition to all the goings-on that were happening, we also saw deformed slug-like creatures slitting people's throats and obviously preparing some sort of forbidden ritual with a mystic gem. And this issue, starts off that way. It starts off with these groypers headed towards an altar in order to revive Nick Fuentes, in order to revive their lord. They have a mystical sword, they have the mystical gem there, and they also have a concoction made of the blood of innocents, which they are to drink in a kind of unholy communion, and they're all ranting for this blood. The person who's holding up the blood for all the others says something very strange. He says, "Yes, brothers, for though he is of another world and we are of this one, we know that in us he will find the allies he needs to help him conquer and dominate the the Earth." When obviously these creatures are not from Earth. So I don't know what's going on there. I mean, I've known neighborhoods that were close to that, but not exactly. No. And it's the funniest thing in the world. The element of this issue that I noticed more than any other, I should mention, actually, this is by Michael Fleischer, and once again there is artwork by Gary Kwapis with inks by Ernie Chan. I detect only Ernie Chan here, so I don't know who Gary Kwapis is. But I know one thing that I noticed throughout this issue was the humor. Very intentional, sort of puckish humor running throughout. Like at one point, these creatures are so eager to drink the mystical blood that they drop the dish and it breaks. And their leader says, "Fools! Now our rite will have to be postponed an entire fortnight, and special precautions taken to undo the damage your clumsy incompetence has done." The suffering, the loss of one piece of crockery sets them back 2 weeks. But then we move on to Nemedia, pastoral, one of the pastoral kingdoms of Robert E. Howard's Hyborian Age, and to something called the Institution of Scholarship, the Nemedian Academy, where scholars gather together. That does not strike me as a Hyborian Age type thing to do, but we need it for exposition, because this young boy is asking these old scholars about this mystical ritual that he has read about, and thereby we get the story of this character that we missed in issue number 96. The character's name is Gwarl. Not Gary and not Carl, but Gwarl. Gwarrl. And Gwarl gains he's that tall guy in the helmet there. He's in the issue where we meet him. He's pretty formidable. He has an enchanted sword and also the ability to transform men's souls into slugs that he then eats to make himself stronger. And in the issue, he tries that magic trick on Conan, but Conan has taken the precaution of having a young sorceress remove his soul from his body, which I guess you don't need to walk around with in Hyborian era. So that when Gwarl tries to take his soul, there isn't one to be had, and Conan is free to spit him on a sword, and thereby temporarily thwart him. And this scholar is saying, "'Tis fortunate the Devourer utilized the Jewel of Ganymede when he did, Nikos," that's the boy, "and not, shall we say, a fortnight from now, when the planet will be in far different conjunction. For then, those eldritch light bursts which tear the rift of ethereal barrier that would create an entranceway to our universe for the Shatterer of worlds. Within scant moments after entering our plane of existence, that malevolent netherworldly being would tear asunder the very fabric of our universe, and all being would literally cease to exist." And the scholar wants to emphasize the point about tearing apart the fabric of our reality by tearing apart one of his priceless scrolls. Doesn't strike me as a scholarly thing to do at all. Nico, the young boy, idolizes Conan. He dreams he is using a sword that's too big for him to smash away at random pieces of junk because he's heard of all these stories of Conan. And when he discovers another young woman killed, he rushes to the prefect's office, the guards of the city, to tell them that something is coming which will, if this rite takes place, the very plane of our existence. And the one-eyed captain of the guards says, "See here, lad, maybe most of us guardsmen never rated a scholarship at the academy, but that sure as blazes doesn't make us a pack of..." And then we get a bit of humor where one person is arguing with another person about their wife, and it starts a gigantic brawl. As if to underscore the fact that these guys are not really set out for the academy. And the one-eyed head of the guardsmen says that that he doesn't have any men to spare to look into this mystical rite, because if he did have men to spare, he would be going after Conan, and there's a wanted poster of Conan. When suddenly it occurs to Nico, "Oh, what was I doing going to the guard captain when I can simply look for Conan? Conan has fought this thing before. The scholars at the Institute told me that. Surely I can do that." So he goes out wandering into the country, and we get an extended bit of humor where he knows that Conan is in the area. He's heard that Conan is in the area, and the extended bit of humor is that he runs across one example after another of Conan's aftermath. He runs across battered men. He runs across an absolutely destroyed tavern with men lying everywhere, furniture shattered into 1,000 pieces. He runs across very comely wenches in a secluded temple, and they are very happy at the mention of Conan and tell Nico, "Please tell him from me that we hope he comes back." And he runs across a whole bunch of brigands who are all maimed. One has lost an arm, one has lost a leg, one's had his ear chopped off or his eye gouged out. He runs across this band of brigands that is also an aftermath of Conan, which is kind of funny. All of that is kind of funny. And we move ahead to Conan himself, engaged in a bit of work where he is abducting someone's soon-to-be bride. Again, I like the lack of egotism on Michael Fleischer's part. I don't know anything about Michael Fleischer as a writer, but I like his lack of egotism, that he doesn't feel the need to fill this up. This is good artwork. It's well designed, well paced. It varies up. Why not just leave it? It tells the story you want to tell. Where we get this wonderful panel where Conan swoops in to snatch the bride. And again, more wonderful panel work. Launches her onto palm trees to make their escape. And we get another bit of humor where she says, I know you've pledged to return me to Mikkel, barbarian, but, you don't have to return me right away, do you? Good stuff. Good roughhousing barbarian humor. And eventually, he meets the boy. And he hears stories about this horrific event. Eventually, that happens. But the horrific event is going on. These creatures are these Groypers are trying to revive Nick Fuentes. And they keep hitting obstacles, and one of the obstacles is that Nico is disguised in their ranks. He has penetrated their ranks, and they're really not all that smart. Any secret group that says good eventide instead of good even can be counted on to make all sorts of dumb mistakes. We get one of their scummy emissaries fights with Conan, and there's a little detail here that is given, I think, precious little emphasis. In fact, it's never alluded to when I think it would be serious, which is that one of these inhuman creatures, you can see clearly, bites Conan. Good, solid bite in the abdomen. It cannot be that bite is wholesome. that simply cannot be. But Conan is briefly captured by the guardsmen who are out looking for him, but he escapes, and we get this great panel where he's just hacking his way through them, while the Groypers are working on reviving their lord. It's taking them all issue to do it, but they are eventually doing that. They eventually want to do that, but there's another, using the sword and the gem, they are also doing something else. They want to revive Warl, but they're also reviving something else. They're opening a doorway, and we quickly intuit that they're opening a doorway to the aforementioned Shatterer of Worlds, which is not Warl himself. He does revive. And Conan is right there to fight him. But it's a hopeless battle this time around. Warl is 8 feet tall. He's a supernatural being. He has a supernatural sword. And Conan is not protected this time. He doesn't have his little ensorcelled trick where his soul is elsewhere. But it turns out not to matter. In the MacGuffin that ends the issue, it turns out not to matter. Warl transforms all of his inhuman priests into slugs so that he can eat them. But then he tells Conan that their fight is going to have to wait. He says, "Take my ensorcelled blade, Cimmerian, and use it precisely as I bid you. Except as a source of food for my dying race, you and your race of fleas mean nothing to me. But if the Shatterer lingers further in this universe for longer than a handful of seconds, your world will be destroyed irrevocably. And what would be infinitely more disastrous, the parallel netherworld where my race dwells would simultaneously cease to exist." So Warl wants Conan to launch him into the stratosphere to fight the Devourer of Worlds, the Shatterer of Worlds. And off he goes to fight the Shatterer of Worlds. And there is a bright, blinding light, and then that's it. And all that's left is the boy and the girl, the woman that he saved from her unwanted marriage, and that's it. The temple even destroys. Neat and clean as you please. So aside from the bits of humor, this is a kind of a dumb issue. That is a weird way to wrap up the story of a villain who has potential. Of course, it's not wrapped up. It's a classic comic book ending, where Warl could return. but even so, the droll humor of Conan's presence in the story makes me want to give it 2 lopped heads. And when we turn to the letters page, whoever made the letters page was as struck by one of the visuals in an earlier issue that I showed you as I was, because they reprint that visual right in the center. Here's some Cimmerian mercy for you. They print that visual right in the middle of the page. But we get a letter. Ho ho! Remember, the letters page here is about a story that we saw together, The Mill, where Conan fights with his own men in the cloistered confines of a mill in the middle of a snowstorm, in the middle of the snowy wilderness. And one reader did not like that story at all. A reader from Homeworth, Ohio, writes in and says, The Mill was the worst story I've read in this book for quite some time. And he addresses the writer, Mr. Krar, who I think one of you said was Larry Hama. It takes more than multiple Hyborian curses, a ton of blood and guts, and one or two semi-rape scenes to make an enjoyable Conan adventure. Violence was an important part of Howard's original tales, but a good, solid story idea always came first. The Mill was 10% Conan, 90% attempted gross-out. This issue wasn't a total waste, however, since Michael Golden's cover was of appeal. But please, but that cover almost made up for the atrocity of The Mill. And then the editors write a response to that letter. Golly gee whiz, you mean you really like those stories where Conan lounges around an alabaster palace discussing philosophy with his hand nailed to his forehead? Give me a break. The reader is soundly put in their place. That Conan stories are about blood and guts. I don't know. I kind of like that story. But anyway, there you go. That is our excursion for today. It is Savage Sword of Conan number 109, where Graal, who turns men's souls into slugs and eats them, returns. Very briefly, he returns very briefly and is no sooner revived than he goes off to fight some netherworldly MacGuffin, and we never see him again. So there you go. We'll move on to the next one next time, and I'll see you then. Thank you.